and welcome back to my channel. I am Linda and I am an intuitive healer and an awareness coach. And in this channel, I share with you clear and practical guidance to help you heal from your past pain, reconnect to your soul, and live your best life. So today's video is about dreams and dream interpretation. So I will give you some general ideas as to how we can use your dreams, and later on in the video, I'm going to give you some tips to help you interpret your own dreams. Now, to start, I am not going to go into the definition of dreams because everybody knows what dreams are, right? But suffice it to say that dreams are a projection of our subconscious mind. Now, biologically, they can help us process emotion and interpret and integrate our experiences, meaning our day-to-day, our live awake experiences. But also spiritually, they provide tons of information and can help us communicate to our higher self. Now, there are several types of dreams. I'm not going to get into all of the different types. If you're interested, you can Google that information. You can also look for Edgar Cayce's information on dreams, but there's plenty of websites and tools out there that would let you know what all the different types of dreams are and how to categorize them, how to understand them, etc. There's things like, obviously everybody knows about nightmares. There's also prophetic dreams, or I like to call them precognitive dreams. There's also lucid dreaming. There's all different kinds of dreams. But what is important to know is that each of them serve a different function. Now, the work of interpreting dreams is actually pretty much the same, irrespective of which kind of dream you're having. Learning to interpret our dreams can be really helpful in helping you understand some of your subconscious desires, some of your subconscious fears, etc. But because they're painted with imagery, it's really difficult for us sometimes to interpret and understand their symbolism and what they're trying to tell us. But my focus in this video is to help you interpret the information in those dreams so you can then leverage it for your own growth. Now, if we want to learn how to interpret dreams, the first thing we need to do is remember our dreams, because if we don't remember them, we cannot interpret them. So to that end, I will give you a couple of tips that can help you start remembering your dreams. Now, there are people out there who remember their dreams very easily. I happen to be one of those people. I remember dreams that I had as a child, but not everybody does. And I actually have gone through periods of time in my life that I don't remember, like 3 or 4 months where I don't remember any of my dreams, right? And a lot of that has to do with what's going on in your life emotionally and spiritually, but also your sleep patterns, etc. But what we want is to start remembering our dreams. So the first tip or the first suggestion that I will give you to remember your dreams is to ask for that, right? To actually ask to receive dreams and to ask to remember your dreams. And when I say ask, I mean asking of your higher self, but you could also ask of whomever or whatever you believe in, right? Whether it's God, the angel, spirit, the universe, whatever it is that you want to call it. Personally, when I ask for these kinds of things, I prefer to ask my higher self, which in fact is connected to source and the entire universe, because we are all one. But it's actually stating that your desire to have dreams and to remember your dreams, okay? And that actually goes on to the next tip, which is setting the intent. Now, there's a difference between these two, is asking for dreams, and then the second suggestion is to set the intent that you are going to remember your dreams. So it's basically just it's almost as if you were making an affirmation that you're just gonna remember your dreams. So a good way to do this is like right as you're laying in bed and you're about, you put your covers on and like you're ready to go to sleep. As you close your eyes, start thinking or saying in your mind, I am going to remember my dreams. I am going to remember my dreams. I am going to remember my dreams. And repeat that several times. For a period of time, I actually have tested this a couple of times throughout my life, and one of the things that I did was I would continue to repeat that in my head until I fell asleep. So I would fall asleep with that in my head. Another thing you could actually do is just maybe record your voice saying, I am going to remember my dreams, I am going to remember my dreams, and then play that as you're falling asleep. Obviously, if you're sleeping with someone next to you, you probably want to use earphones or whatever the case may be. But those are ways that you can start training your brain to have dreams and to remember your dreams. Now, my third suggestion for you is that you record your dreams, that you keep a pen and paper or a voice recorder or both right next to you in bed, so that anytime you wake up from a dream, you can write down what you remember. That could be either how it felt or how you felt, or the imagery or the sounds or whatever it was. Now, when I say anytime, I really mean anytime. I am someone who wakes up several times a night. Usually I wake up at least once to pee in the middle of the night. And I also, I have very, very light sleep pattern. So sometimes I wake up startled in the middle of the night. So anytime you have a dream, it doesn't have to be in the morning. Even if it is in the middle of the night, try to write it down. Now, the reason why I also suggest a voice recorder as an alternative is because in my experience, sometimes writing it down is very hard. I cannot tell you the number of times that I've woken up in the morning to try and read what I wrote about my dreams, and it is completely illegible. Like, I have no idea what I wrote. It's just complete gibberish. And actually, I believe there's an episode of Seinfeld that talks about that. But it's not something I can even understand, because I was half asleep as I was writing, and the letters don't even look like letters. It looks like a bunch of squigglies. So anyways, and to be fair, that's also happened to me with the voice recorder. Sometimes I listen to it the next morning and I am talking like in tongues, like you cannot even understand what I'm trying to say. But for me personally, I have a better chance at capturing my dream when I do the voice recording. So that's why I suggest it as an alternative for people. You can also keep both of those next to your bed, and actually it's super easy. Now, you don't even have to have a voice recorder. You know, if you have your phone, you can download like a recording app on your phone and just have it ready. I basically put it next to my bed with the app, the voice recording app, open, so that if I wake up from a dream, all I have to do is click the red button so that I can start recording. And that's actually what I found the easiest to do. And that actually takes me to our fourth step, or fourth suggestion, which is create the habit, right? Be consistent. The more consistent you are about these suggestions, the more your mind starts creating the habit, to the point that you start doing that naturally without any sort of effort or prompting, right? Now, there are other suggestions that people make to help you remember your dreams. I don't particularly recommend some of them. There's one thing that is a very common suggestion that I've heard, which is to set an alarm clock. Like, if you normally go to bed around whatever, midnight, right? To set an alarm clock, I think it's about 3 to 4 hours after, because that's actually when I guess you're in your dreaming stage of your sleep cycle. And that if you set an alarm to wake you up at that time, you're more likely to remember your dreams. I'm mentioning that here. What I will say is I personally do not use that technique. Like I said, my sleep patterns are very easily disrupted. I have a real hard time falling asleep and a real hard time staying asleep. So for me, I just don't think it's a good idea, because I don't want, if I'm really in that deep state of sleep, I don't want to disrupt that. And I also happen to have the benefit that I usually remember my dreams without much prompting, so I actually don't need that. I only mention that here so that you understand that there's a lot of different ways that you can do that, and the suggestions that I make in this and other videos are things that I know have worked for me. So I normally only recommend things that I have tried, or that people very close to me have tried and have worked for us. Now, one quick thing that I want to add here when we talk about journaling or dream journaling, right, or recording into your voice recorder, is to try and give as much detail as you can. Describe any sounds, imagery, but also not just how you were feeling, but also how the dream itself felt, almost like stylistically speaking, like did the dream have a particular quality to it, etc. And the reason why I think that is important is because that will also help you differentiate between your types of dreams. So for example, I am someone who's had precognitive dreams, and precognitive is what I think people commonly would say like psychic dreams, right? Which is I have a dream and then that particular event of that dream would happen a few weeks later, right? So for someone who's had precognitive dreams before, you will well, actually, I don't know that this is true for everybody. It's certainly true for everybody that I've talked to that has precognitive dreams, but the quality of the dreams feel very different than our regular day-to-day dreams. Sort of like, you know how like a nightmare feels different than a regular dream? Like even as the nightmare is starting, even when nothing bad has happened, like your heart rate is already, at least in the dream, feels a little bit faster, and you seem like you're like hypersensitive and sort of hyper aware. Is similar to that. There's like things that just feel different about different types of dreams. So like the precognitive dreams for me feel like a very clear movie. You know how like dreams oftentimes have like this sort of like I don't know, like not clear quality to them, right? And like there's images and things don't always make sense. Like you're talking to someone and they look like a person, but they actually feel like a different person. You know, those types of weird things that happen in dreams, right? With all the symbolism. Precognitive dreams for me are very clear. It's almost like watching a clear high definition movie, and everything that happens makes sense and is sequential and things are in the right place, etc. And the reason I learned that is through journaling. The first time I had a precognitive dream, I actually wrote in my journal, because at that time I was still writing in the journals and not using voice recording, that the dream felt different. It just was very clear and everything was sequential and made sense, as opposed to the rest of my dreams, which are much more like a Salvador Dali painting. And I mean, if those of you who are watching that know me, Salvador Dali is like my idol. I love his paintings, but well, his surrealist period. I'm not a fan of the other ones, but anyways, I digress. My point is that it feels very different, right? So one of the good things about journaling, or at least recording even in a voice recorder, the quality and the style of your dreams is that it would actually help you to differentiate between them. So having said that, we can now move to the meat of this video, which is helping you interpret your dreams. So the first tip to learn how to interpret your dreams is to use a dream dictionary. And there's plenty out there. The one that I recommend the most, and you can Google this very easily, is Edgar Cayce, C-A-Y-C-E, his dream journal. He's a pretty famous person. I'm not gonna, well, at least in the spiritual realms or in the spiritual community. And I am actually not going to link it here because there's a lot of different ways or places where you can find his dictionary. I actually think it is also in one of his books, but don't quote me on that because I've read a few and I may be getting that confused. My point is, find a reliable dream dictionary that you can use. That's actually a really good first step, because it's gonna help you get you started understanding how different things have pretty universal or are pretty universally symbolic for other things. So for example, water in most spiritual communities, as well as dream interpretation, tarot card reading, anything that is sort of esoteric practices, water usually symbolizes emotions. Now, that doesn't mean that it will always symbolize emotions for you, but that's the universal symbolism. So that will help you start wrapping your head around the different types of symbols that you can find in a dream. Now, my second tip for dream interpretation is to go back and review your journal. One of the things that I do is I switched from writing or recording my dreams by writing to using voice recording. However, I actually transcribe the voice recording later. The reason why I do that is because I oftentimes have particular patterns in my dreams or particular locations that show up in my dreams, over time. Like I have a particular city, is a small city, you could say a town, that has all these specific characteristics that I've been dreaming about for years. So I like to be able to go back to a document and do a quick search, right, and look for a particular term. Like, for example, if I dream about a pig today, 5 years later, if I have another dream about a pig, I can just go into the document and do a quick search and then pull up all of the dreams that I had that had a pig in them, or like the word pig in them, right? So at this point I have like hundreds and hundreds, I think I've actually gone into the thousands of pages from dream interpretation, which is like my dream journal. So I would really encourage you to review your dream journal periodically so that you start noticing different patterns. So for example, like we were talking before, the symbolism of water in dreams and really any esoteric practices is emotions, right? You may find out that for you, every time water shows up in a dream, it actually doesn't mean emotions, but it means, I don't know, movement, say for example, right? Or you may find when you look back and review your journal that the ocean may symbolize emotions, but rivers symbolize movements for you. Like every time that you have a dream with a river, you're actually moving into another phase of your life, whereas anytime that you have a dream with the ocean, you are in your awake life, you are struggling with your emotions, say for example, right? So that's really the importance of creating a journal, a dream journal. For me, for some people, it's just so you get into the habit of remembering your dreams and recording them and interpreting them in the moment. For me, it goes beyond that, and I think it's really useful so that you can almost create your own dictionary, right? Because of the patterns that you find in your dreams. Now, the third tip for dream interpretation is something that I got from one of my mentors, but since then I've actually heard other people suggest it, which is to imagine that everyone and everything in the dream is you. So for example, if you're dreaming that you are in a house, right? You would be the couch that someone is sitting on. You would be the person that is sitting on the couch. You would be the person who's observing the other person sitting on the couch. And then try to understand and interpret what role each of those components play, how they feel, how they interact with each other, etc. So that is something I use that tool. I personally do not use it very often, but I do think it can prove to be very helpful, because at the end of the day, your dreams are an interpretation of your subconscious mind. So all of those things, in fact, are you. And actually, universally speaking, right, we are all one. So you are at the couch and you are the other person, etc. So that's one of the reasons why that can be a really helpful tip. Now, my preferred method of interpreting dreams is tip number 4. So my fourth tip for dream interpretation is that you note or take notice or focus on the overwhelming emotion or theme of the dream. So what I mean by that is a lot of times you may have dreams where you have different emotions, a range of emotions as well. You may be like, I don't know, whatever, at a birthday party and be happy, and then a clown shows up and you get scared, right? So you have like happiness and fear. And by the way, I'm terrified of clowns, and I'm actually embarrassed to say that, but it just came to mind. I'm a grown woman that is still afraid of clowns. But in any case, my point is that in one dream you can have multiple emotions, but there's usually, in my personal experience and from other people that I've talked to, there's usually an overwhelming theme or emotion of the dream. So a personal example that I can give is that I had this recurring dream for years and years at a time, which was I was running through what appeared to be like a hotel room, because there was all these different doors that were numbered, right? Like 302, 306, 304, and they were not in order. They were not sequential. That's something that I always remembered about the dream. Like 301 would be here, but then it would be 305. Like there wasn't a particular sequence to the numbers. And there was also a set of elevators, right? Like there would be in the lobby of a hotel. And I kept going into different floors. Sometimes I would take the stairs. Oftentimes I would take the elevators and go into the hallways. And then it was like this massive, massive hotel. And I kept running around away from something, but I never was able to see, or I had no clue what that something was. I just knew something felt like it was after me. It could have been a person, an animal, a thing. I had no idea. I was just afraid and running away from something. So the emotion that I had in the dream, which was a very powerful emotion, was fear. But the overwhelming theme of the dream was that I was running away from something, right? So you can start noticing those things and then trying to look for connections to your awake life. So what areas of your life are you feeling fearful about, or what areas of your life are you experiencing fear about something, fear about the unknown, for example? Or more importantly, as it was my case, what areas of your life or what things in your life are you running away from that are not an actual real threat, right? So that's what actually was true for me, because in the dream, I remember being afraid, but it wasn't fear that it was overriding everything. It was this me running away, this me wanting to run away that almost took up all of the emotional space in that dream. So when I focus on that, I was able to determine the connections of that dream to my real life. Now, one quick side note that I want to mention here, that it's not exactly a tip, is that a lot of times, this is not true 100% of the time, at least I cannot confirm that empirically speaking, but it's true most of the time. When you actually hit on the correct interpretation, the dream will go away, even if it is a recurring dream. If I use the same example that I was just talking about a moment ago of me running away from something in this hotel, once I understood that I was running away from something in my life and what that was and what that dream was trying to tell me, I haven't had that dream. And that was like maybe, I'd say about 4 or 5 years ago, that the dream was the last time that I had the dream. But prior to that, I had that dream pretty recurrently. Like I had it at least a few times a year for many, many years, right? And so oftentimes when you hit on the right interpretation, right, once that subconscious imagery and symbolism becomes conscious, because I am now in my awake state aware of what that connection is, there's no longer a need for the dream. Now, that's not true in 100% of the cases, because there's layers and levels to everything, right? Maybe you are aware of something in that dream, right? You became consciously aware of something in that dream, but there's other aspects or symbolism in the dream that you haven't quite understood yet. So what may happen is you may continue to have the dream, but maybe with less frequency, or maybe the dream itself will change. So maybe the setting is the same, but some of the emotions that you're feeling or some of the environment is a little different. But also what can happen is that the intensity of the dream shifts. So for example, in that particular dream, I haven't had it anymore, but an example would be that I am now able to see what I'm running away from, or I may no longer be running away from it, but I'm still in the hotel room and feeling a little fearful, right? So the dream itself may change, or it may go away in its entirety. Just remember that, dream interpretation is a very, very personal thing, and you can use a lot of these tools and a lot of these ideas that I gave you to interpret them, right, and to help you, but ultimately you have to come up with your own interpretation of how it applies to your life, or work with someone that can actually specifically help you and guide you to interpret your own dreams with your own symbolism, etc. But again, I'd love to hear some of your dreams. Maybe I can give you some ideas. And as always, I hope this is helpful to you. And until next time, namaste.